This week's video topic has the potential to get a little heavy, so fair warning in advance. Hello there, welcome back to the channel. I am Grand Moff Tony, and you're gonna have to excuse my appearance this week. I am dealing with a hole in my face that will not go away, so here we are. For this week's video, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about something that I've wanted to talk about for a while. I've kind of touched on it a couple of times, but I actually really want to go in depth. Something that we talk about a lot on this channel are healthy collecting habits, like things that we do to keep this hobby fun, like stuff that we do to make sure we don't fall into bad habits and we don't let this hobby become an obsession or even an addiction. And I feel like this is something that comes up quite a lot in the community, but at the same time it doesn't really get talked about enough, if that makes sense. Now for me personally, I've got a whole bunch of rules that I try my best to follow to try and keep my collecting hobby not so much under control, but at least like manageable. And I feel like with the increasingly expensive climate surrounding collecting and just the fact that things are getting more and more expensive, cost of living going up, blah blah blah, all of that good stuff, it seemed like a good time to kind of talk about this topic and talk about it in a kind of, just sort of open kind of way. So I talk all the time about how I've got these rules that I follow, and yet I've never really talked in depth about what those rules are. Like these guidelines that I try my best to follow in order to try and keep this collecting hobby manageable. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. I'm going to be bringing you 5 of my kind of collecting guidelines that I use to do exactly that. Why am I specifically talking about 5? Is it so that I can put top 5 healthy collecting habits in the title and ruthlessly take advantage of the algorithm? It just might be. But I wanted to talk about those rules, I wanted to explain what they mean to me, and then I kind of, towards the end of the video, wanted to talk about why I have so many rules and how collecting looked to me back when I didn't have any. And that's what I mean by this topic might get a little heavy towards the end, so again, fair warning of that. So jumping headfirst into this is my number 1 most important rule, the most significant of these guidelines that I use to manage my collecting hobby, and that is that I'm in this for fun. Like, as soon as this stops being fun, that's the day that I stop. I absolutely love a lot of what collecting entails. I love going on toy hunts, I love getting new figures, I love opening them up and exploring them. That's part of the reason why I'm not an in-box collector, I'm an out-of-box collector, because I like to really get to grips with these things and see what they can do on an engineering level and really try and appreciate them as little plastic works of art, because that's basically what I see them as. So I'm not someone who is in this for profit at all. I don't look at my Black Series collection and think, well, one day I'll be able to put my non-existent children through college with these. No, that's not what I'm doing at all. It's never really been about that for any of the collections that I've had across my life. Even the one collection that I sold, I didn't sell it for profit. I sold the figures for what I bought them for, and I made sure they went to people who I thought were going to appreciate them and weren't just going to turn around and sell them on eBay for the price that I should have charged them for. And more than this, we're a pretty upbeat, positive channel, and that's really what this is about. I get a lot of joy out of these figures, and the day that that stops happening, I don't really know what it could be. The day that causes me to suddenly not enjoy this anymore, that'll be the day that I stop. I'm not someone who's gonna carry on slogging through this hobby just because, well, I've started, I may as well see it through to the end. No. If it's not fun anymore, I'll stop. And that's why this is my most important rule, because it's the rule that could end it all. It's the one rule where one day I could be like, you know what, this isn't fun anymore. I need to do something else with my time. And that, I think, is a conversation we all need to have with ourselves. Like, decide whether there is a line in the sand somewhere. Like, what it comes down to. Does it come down to cost? Like, is there a cutoff cost? Something happening in the production design of the line? Maybe. It probably would come down to something like that. It would have to be something really significant to stop this from being fun for me. And this kind of leads me into my second rule, and that's that I only collect what I want. I'm not a completionist. I'm really not. There are figures on my spreadsheet of the entire history of the Black Series that are just blacked out because it's not feasible for me to want them. Like, because maybe they're convention exclusives from years back that I'm just never going to get my hands on without donating a kidney. Or maybe it's a case of, you know, there was an original Redline figure and I either didn't pick it up or I did pick it up, but then they released a Galaxy line. I might look at that Galaxy line figure in person and go, yeah, you know what? It's better. There's an improvement. And if there's an improvement, I'll buy the new one. But in several cases, I've bought the original Redline figure. A good example that springs to mind is Chopper. I bought the original Redline Chopper back when he came out, and in fact the original Redline Ezra. And then when the Galaxy packaging versions came out, I didn't see enough of an improvement between the two to make me go, yeah, you know what? I'll buy that figure again. Yeah, nah. I've got my Redline figures. I'm happy. I don't need the new ones. And the same is true for the opposite. If I bought the Galaxy line figure first, I'm not going to go back and buy the old Blue Line version. Why would I do that? It's probably way more expensive. It won't be as good. No, I only collect what I want. And there are figures that are in the Black Series that I would probably never own just because I don't particularly want them. There's only really one that stands out to me, and that's probably Jackson, because as into the canon as I am, and I'm pretty deep in there, I read a lot of the material, I just don't really care about Jackson at all. From my understanding, it's a fantastic figure and I'm happy for people who like it, but I don't feel the need to go out and buy an action figure of a character that I don't particularly care about just so I can say that I've got him. And that's another one of my rules. Like, if I look at a figure that's released and I think, I don't need it, that's fine. I'm not sitting here being a completionist, and people who are completionists, you have my utmost respect. I couldn't do it. Because the moment that the same figure got released in different packaging, I think I would be out. Like, the second that happened, I'd be like, you know what? It's not for me. Completionism, it's not for me. So yeah, I only buy the figures that I want. I don't gotta catch them all. It's not for me to be a completionist. My third rule is really the most basic. It's the budget. I feel like as a collector, as an adult collector who's got a mortgage and a family, I have to have a budget. I can't just go out and spend my entire paycheck on toys, as much as I might love to. Now, my budget is, give or take, $100 a month. I use my credit card to buy my toys, and that's how I keep on top of what I'm spending on my action figures. And, you know, some months, if I'm on holiday and I'm, you know, spending a bit more, like, you think I kept track of how much I was spending when we were in the UK? Nah. If I saw it and I wanted it, I bought it. But equally, there are months, like the last couple of months, actually, where I haven't spent the full $100. And an important part of that is that it's not like I sat there and went, you know what, I only spent $40 last month, so this month I can spend $160. No. It cuts off at the end of the month and it resets. Anything I don't spend, it's a bonus. If I spent over, I'm not gonna, you know, equally, I'm not gonna say next month, well, I overspent last month, so I can't spend anything this month. I mean, technically, right now, I've just spent 5 times my monthly toy budget because I bought the Ghost. I'm not gonna sit here and not buy anything for 5 months. If I see something I want, I'm probably gonna go for it, but I have an established system where I'm going to pay back the price of the Ghost as quickly as I can. So having a reasonable budget, one that's not like set in stone, one that's got a little bit of flexibility to it, a little bit of fluidity, maybe a little more fluidity than people might care to admit, it's a reasonable way to regulate your spending, and it's a reasonable way to prevent overspending, because that's what we're trying to avoid here. We're trying to avoid going in too deep, and I want to talk about that a little later on when I get into the reasons why I have these rules. Rule number 4 is just a personal one for me. Don't feed the scalpers. That's just a decision that I have made when it comes to my collecting, and it is a rule that I am completely okay with my wife absolutely ignoring when it comes to my birthday or Christmas. If there's an action figure that she wants to get me for my birthday or Christmas, I don't care how she comes by it. There are figures in my collection that I still don't know how much they cost, and I will never ask because it's not important. But we talk about this a lot in the community, the people that they go out and they buy up all the new figures and then they sell them for a ridiculous amount of money, and it's okay to complain about that. It's kind of hypocritical to then turn around and go and buy from them anyway because you really, really want that ARC Trooper 5s. And And personally, as far as I'm concerned, FOMO schmomo. I don't really feel that fear of missing out anymore, especially not the way I used to back around like 2020, 2021, back when I first started to really get into the line. I don't feel like I have to go and pre-order everything that comes out anymore, because I've had so many experiences where I have done that. I have pre-ordered the figure, or I've bought it day one, and then it's still there 6 months later. So why did I rush? Why did I go in there and potentially blow my budget to get that figure when I could have easily waited 2 weeks, gone back, and it's still there? Let's just be honest about this. Scalpers suck in every community. It's a sucky practice, they're sucky people, and I don't care for them very, very much, and they kind of taint this hobby with that practice. I've nearly lost figures to scalpers before, and I've mentioned that before. My Commander Pyre figure that I ordered from Target, someone tried to snatch it up and walk out with all 6 of them that had come in when all 6 of them had all been pre-ordered. And I guess I just really don't understand this mentality. I kind of touched on this on my first rule, when I'm in this for fun, I'm not in this for profit. I think there's this misconception that mass-produced action figures are some kind of secret gold mine that are always going to turn a massive profit. And sure, you know what? You go back the history of Star Wars action figures, and maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe the value of the old Kenner figures is really what inspired this kind of attitude. But I don't think toys are manufactured the same way anymore. I'm pretty sure you keep an eye on like the secondary market, and you don't see the same kinds of prices as you see on those old Kenner figures. Now sure, those figures are a lot older. They've been around for a lot longer, but I think it's got a lot more to do with the fact that action figures are much more mass-produced these days than they used to be. And that could have been a deliberate choice by Hasbro to try and, you know, nip this kind of thing in the bud. But like I say, it's all well and good to sit here and grumble about scalpers ruining collecting, but if I then turn around and jump onto eBay and spend, I don't know, $75 on ARC Trooper 5s, which I haven't done and I probably won't do, then I don't really have a leg to stand on. So not feeding the scalpers is another one of my rules. I will pay a little over retail. Like if it's a character that I really, really want, or it's a figure that is just blowing up in the community and people are going crazy about it, then yeah, I'll pay a little over retail, but I'm not gonna sit here and drop 3 or 4 times the retail price just to lock one of these figures down. I can always come back to it later, and there's always the chance of just finding it in the wild. That happens so often when you go out and actually look for these things. You'd be surprised what you can find. So no feeding of scalpers. And fifth and finally, the last rule that I wanted to talk about is, it's more of a personal one for me. I don't pay full price for army builders. Now, I'm sure there'll be people out there that will shout hypocrite and say, no, you're always talking about you have to support the line, you have to show up with your wallets and buy these things to show Hasbro they need to keep making. They're always going to keep making them. Hasbro are a toy company. They're always going to make toys. Let's just get over that little speed bump there. And if I've ever given the impression that you should go out day one and buy these new releases the day that they come out, no matter who they are, no matter what they are, then that was never my intention. Like, I don't mean to give that impression, because I don't follow that initiative. That's not something that I do. There are 3 or 4 figures from the Andor line that are sitting in my local GameStop right now and have been there for a month and a half. I don't have them and I haven't bought them. And it's not because I don't want them. They are great figures and I will get around to getting them. It's just, I've seen a recent pattern in GameStop recently where the prices will come down. And that rule mostly applies, as I said, to army builders. It applies to the troopers that come out. That's why when I do my wish lists, I don't really talk about army builders, because I'm not going to sit here and say, these are the 5 figures from XYZ movie that I really, really want, and 3 of them are 3 different variants of Stormtrooper. So Hasbro turns around and miraculously says, okay, here are the 3 variants of Stormtrooper that you asked for. And then I go, ugh. I'm not going to buy them at full price though. Now, I'm not talking about waiting for clearance, because that I feel like is too far. It literally is, if it's not full price, then I'll probably pick it up. So if I'm using my monthly $5 voucher in GameStop, or if there's a sale at Target, then that's good. Like, for instance, I recently picked up a whole bunch of those Ferrex Imperial officers that are definitely Ferrex Imperial troopers and not officers, but who cares? And I did that because they were on sale. sale. They were marked way down. I think they were like $7 each. So yeah, I'll buy a bunch of them. Now, I did buy one of them, my original, at full price, because my no buying troopers at full price rule wasn't in full effect yet. But it was around that sort of time that I was thinking, you know, these figures are getting more and more expensive. I don't really like the idea of dropping $26, $27 a pop on just the latest variant of Stormtrooper. And considering that back when I started this collection, my focus was going to be primarily on characters anyway, this really helps me regulate what I'm spending each month and helps me focus more on the characters that are coming out, because those are the figures that I really want. Now, when the basement's done and I'm filling out my displays, I'm going to want troopers for that. But when I'm just out and I'm on the hunt, not really looking for anything, I'm not really going to drop full price on a Stormtrooper. I'll drop full price on a new character. I'll drop full price on a new version of a character we've gotten 15 times already. But I won't really do it for a trooper. So just to recap on my 5 rules, I'm in this for fun, I'm not in this for profit. I only buy what I want, I'm not a completionist. I have a somewhat flexible $100 budget each month, I don't feed the scalpers, and I don't buy army builders at full price. Those are just 5 of the kind of guidelines that I use to try and regulate my hobby. So now I'm really gonna suck up and I'm gonna tell you why I have these rules. I'm gonna tell you what my collecting habit looked like before I had these rules. About 10 years ago, I was in a pretty weird place, and I was really not paying too much attention to what I was collecting and why. I had collections of pretty much everything. Like, any franchise that I was even loosely interested in, if they released like action figures or like busts or anything like that, and I saw them and I was like, ooh, I like that, I would buy it. And then once I had bought it, I would take it home, I'd look for what else was being released in that line, and I'd buy those too. This may give you the impression that I was some kind of child millionaire. I was not. I just really didn't have an appreciation for the value of money, and I was really stuck in a kind of attitude where I was going to spend what I want and do what I wanted, because I worked 60 hours a week. I should be able to spend my money on whatever I damn well please. This may clue you into the fact that I have a very addictive personality. I have a tendency to go very hard, especially when it comes to new things that I'm discovering that I'm interested in. I go through a phase of absolute hyper-focus. I want everything to do with this and I want it all now, and then most of the time, a couple of months will pass and I'll never think about it again. A good example of this, I had a collection of about 150 itty-bitty die-cast DC Comics characters, statues. I don't know why. I liked maybe 12 of the 150 that I had. I never read any of the magazines that came with them. It was one of those monthly magazine and a statue subscriptions, and I always got suckered into those things because addictive personality. So think that, but like spread across everything that I like all the different franchises that I enjoy. I had horror figures, I had model kits of Star Trek ships, I had one-to-one movie prop replicas, I had costumes of movie characters that I had no intention of ever using. I mentioned in the last video that I played Dynasty Warriors a lot back in the day. I had a collection of Dynasty Warrior character weapons. No idea why. They didn't serve any purpose whatsoever. They didn't have some kind of hidden function. They were just there. They just sat there and they did nothing. And you know what happened to pretty much all of that stuff the day that I realized I had to pack my life into 2 suitcases and move halfway around the world? They all went to charity shops, because the truth of the matter was I didn't care about any of it. I just bought it because I wanted it. This kind of attitude about I work for my money so I'll spend it however I want it evolved into some very, very unhealthy spending habits. Like, it got to the point where I was getting my monthly pay and that monthly pay was taking me back to 0, and I would then just work backwards into the negatives over the month, just buying whatever I wanted and not really caring about the consequences. To cut a long story short, I had a pretty severe spending addiction and became very self-destructive. Like, at that point, I'm putting the entire stability of my life at risk. You will not believe what my wake-up call was. Part of my spending addiction also included spending a ton of money on pointless mobile games. I would spend so much money on these bloody games, and it went nowhere. Most of the games that I spent money on no longer exist, so that money's just gone. This one day, I'm playing, I think it was Simpsons Tapped Out. That one might still be around, I don't know, I don't play it anymore. And I'm going in to spend my usual ridiculous amount of money on, you know, my batch of, I think the premium currency in that game is donuts, I forget. And Google turns around and says no. And I'm like, huh, what's up with that? I had been spending so much money on my phone that Google thought my account had been hacked. They thought there is no way any right-thinking person is spending this amount of money on a mobile game. We have to step in. We have to freeze this account. And I was moments from reaching into my wallet to send them a picture of my driver's license to be like, no, it's me. I'm spending all this money. Oh, wait, I'm spending all this money. A multi-billion-dollar technology company that couldn't care less about the consumer thinks that I've been hacked because I'm spending so much money on mobile games. And that was really my wake-up call. That was when I stopped. I didn't give them my ID. I didn't reactivate my Google Play account, and I sat and I tried to figure out what the hell has gone wrong with my life. Because you don't realize how far you're going until something happens that opens your eyes. But I got incredibly lucky. I had this wake-up call before I was so deep into the problem that I couldn't get back out of it. The thing is, I can still feel it sometimes. It manifests as a kind of tugging that I experience in my chest. I feel kind of hollow, and it'll just say, oh, just go on. Just one more store. Go to one more store. Buy one more figure this month. And, you know, never mind your budget. Just one more. And as soon as I feel that, as soon as that feeling comes into my chest, I know it's time to stop. It's time to back away. And it's time to take some time off. So that's why I have so many rules governing my collecting hobby, because I've been on the other side of it. I've had no rules. I've just gone out and done whatever I wanted. Now, my collection has been streamlined. Loosely, I'm only collecting Star Wars stuff, but really predominantly it's only Black Series stuff. And that helps too, like shutting out the other things that were just constantly grabbing my attention. Like, imagine that I'm spending $100 on Black Series, but then I'm also spending $100 on this collection, this one, that one. And I can't imagine it anymore. I can't imagine being in that place. I said it was going to get heavy. I guess it got heavy. You know, this is all stuff that I'm still not proud of. I'm not sitting here talking about this stuff because I'm secretly proud of the way I used to live. It's still something that I deal with on a pretty regular basis. It doesn't come up as much as it used to. It's definitely gotten easier over the years since I decided to make that change and, you know, stepped away. And I'm now at a point where, yeah, you know what? My card information is on my Google Play. It's there, but I don't use it. And that really was when I knew I have gotten over this. I have beaten this spending addiction. I've got the card. It's connected to my phone again. Like, I can make these purchases, but I am choosing not to do it. And in a similar fashion, you know, I've got my credit card, but I am choosing not to blow my budget each month. When I've already spent like $70 or $80 in a month, I'm choosing to not go out looking for toys. I'm choosing to deliberately avoid places where I might find a toy that I want. Is it weird that talking about this stuff out loud and knowing that people are going to hear me talking about it is incredibly cathartic? Like, I think I just got the opposite feeling in my chest of the feeling that I experience when I'm feeling that tug to go and do something naughty, break one of my rules. I'm feeling the opposite feeling right now, and it feels really good. So I guess the too long didn't watch version of this is that I have these guidelines around my collecting, managing my habits, because I want this hobby to stay fun. I am not the same person that I used to be, 10 years ago. I'm not that person anymore. But I also recognize that I used to be that person, and I guess recognizing that I used to be that person, I used to have those impulses, and I was susceptible to that kind of behavior. It helps drive me forwards, and it helps me want to be a better person now. And I can tell that it's working because I have so many Star Wars Black Series figures, and I love each and every one of them. I love them all. Every single one. When I did that video a couple of weeks back where I went through my collection and, tallied up what I had, that was nothing compared to times when I wouldn't even care how many items I had in my collection, because it didn't matter to me, because the collection didn't matter. It was the thrill of spending the money. It was the freedom of being able to buy whatever I wanted, and, to hell with the consequences. And that left me feeling so hollow and so empty. Whereas now, this collection, it fills my life with so much joy, and I never experienced anything like that. And you know what? Yeah, it doesn't come down to just the fact that I follow a bunch of rules, and that's what makes my collecting hobby happy. I like the fact that I get to do this with my wife. I like the fact that we're both into the same kinds of things. We like to collect the same kinds of things. She gets as excited about toy hunts as I get, and that makes my day. I love the fact that this is a collection that we've effectively built together. Like, I had 3 Black Series figures when I met my wife, and now I have a lot more. This is a collection that we've built together. It's our collection. So yeah, I wanted to sit here and I wanted to talk about healthy collecting habits, why I think they are so important, and why they have proven so important to me, because I can compare these 2 eras of my life and compare these 2 versions of myself and realize how much happier I am with the collector that I am today than the miserable, hollow, empty shell of a person that I was 10 years ago. I know I said this was going to get heavy. I didn't think I realized how heavy it was going to get for a second there. So there you have it. Those are just 5 of the healthy collecting habits that I have adopted to try and keep this hobby fun, to keep it enjoyable, and to keep it bringing joy into my life. Now, next week, I promise a swift return to form. We will be going back to talking about the Wishlist series. We're moving on to The Mandalorian, and I have some great ideas for Mandalorian figures that I would love to see come to this line. So with all that said, let me pass this subject off to you. What are some kind of guidelines that you use to manage your collecting habits? What do you do to keep this hobby fun and stop it from becoming some soul-sucking obsession? I always like to encourage an open and active discourse on these videos, and I'm always impressed every single week by how fun the discussions become down in the comments sections. So yeah, you keep that stuff coming and I will respond to each and every one of you. In the meantime, however, I've been Grand Moff Tony. Those were just a couple of healthy collecting habits that I have adopted to keep collecting fun. You may subscribe when ready. So having... What was that? What am I doing with my arm? Here we go.